everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to SELFi. Welcome in Kuawazesha, which means empower. SELFi promotes self-care, self-expression, and most of all, self-empowerment. Today we have Kendra Holmes. Kendra is an alumnus of Valdosta Technical College, now Wiregrass Technical College. There she majored in information office technology, and applied technology. She graduated with honors and was inducted into the National Technical Honor Society. You guys watch out for Kendra on the tech specs. She received her Doctor of Divinity degree from St. Thomas Christian University and is currently enrolled at Light University, where she is pursuing credentials as a certified relationship coach. So, Kendra, we're going to have some questions for you as far as relationships so we can get the tea on those relationships. Her formal education at Valdosta Tech equipped her for nearly 30 years of corporate employment in the fields of executive administration and office management. She currently serves in the capacities of news writer, editor, reporter, and columnist for a prominent newspaper in Central Georgia. After years of writing for some of the world's most respected mainstream publishing houses, Kendra recently regained full control of her own writing career. Here's this is so amazing. Her most recent titles are published through her own company, Royalty Publications, LLC. She also educates, coaches, consults with, and mentors aspiring writers and rising authors through her signature bootcamp, The Writer's Cocoon. Ms. Kendra Holmes, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining. So, Mrs. Holmes, tell me, are there any Netflix shows that you're watching right now, books or podcasts that you're into right now?
Well, with this whole COVID thing going on and the shelter in place and, unfortunately and fortunately, I have an essential job for working with the news media. So, I still get up and go to work every day. However, I have found myself, not so much Netflix, but I have found myself watching I love classic comedies and classic police dramas, things like that. So in this time, I've been Huluing, not so much Netflixing. And so I've been watching a lot of old classic comedy shows. I've been going back and watching the courtroom type dramas like The Practice and law shows like Rizzoli and Isles. These are, they're not current day shows. They're off the air now, but they were always really popular in their day. Oddly enough, I didn't watch them in the original running. So I'm kind of catching up on some things now. So I've actually probably watched more television in the last probably 2 or 3 months than I have in the last 2 or 3 years. So yes, I have been keeping myself entertained.
Nice. Do you know that show? What is it? Columbo? Is it Columbo? It's like
Oh, I love it. I watched that one too. The whole series, by the way. I watched Columbo and Murder, She Wrote. Those two. I watched both of those.
Every time I go home, it's so funny that you and your husband co-pastors. My dad is a pastor as well, and every time I go home, it'll be Columbo or Old Yeller, or just those classic.
Yeah.
We gotta watch them. We gotta watch them, and it's super important to kind of bond on those classics because that's where all the new stuff kind of stems from. So so that's awesome. So you're a writer. You have your own publishing company and established business. Tell us about it.
Well, I have been writing since I got my start as a writer in 2002, I believe it was, when I wrote my first book that I ultimately self-published. And in my travels and in my workshops that I go about teaching and giving instruction to aspiring writers, I always tell them that if this is something that they know that they're called to do, if it's something that they really have a desire to do, it is something that they need to be willing to persevere with, because it's not a field to get in if you think that it's going to be an overnight success for you. I'll put it that way. I know when I first started out in 2002 with my original first time manuscript, I sent query letters out to so many publishing houses, and seems like I got more rejection letters than I had even sent out. Like more people were rejecting me than I even asked if they, would pick it up. And so if you take that kind of thing to heart, it can be disheartening and you'll give up on your dream. And what I did was I turned around and I self-published it myself. I put the book out myself, and self-publishing is a large undertaking. It was even larger back then than it is now. But I self-published it myself, and I think it had been out for like 7 or 8 months. I received a call from BET. At that time, they had a books division, and I had, oddly enough, sent them a query letter and had gotten a rejection letter from this same company. And they somehow got a copy of my book that I poured myself into and took the initiative to publish on my own accord. A copy of the book fell into their hands. And the managing editor there picked up the phone, gave me a call out of the blue. I had no idea she was calling. And she called and said, "This is a perfect fit for our new Christian line that we've launched. And we not only want to reproduce this for you, but we want you to turn it into a BET 3-book series. And so we want you to write 2 more books, and we want to produce all of them for you." And that's how I got my start as a writer. And the way that God did it, it was like writing for BET. Then I got a call shortly after BET offered the contract. I got a call from Moody Publishers out of Chicago. And they contacted me and said, "Hey, we want to publish, your works." I told them at that time that I had already said that I would write for BET, and their response was, and this was very odd for that time, but their response was, "If you're willing to write for both of us, we'll give you a non-exclusive contract and allow you to write for them and us." And so I had to contact BET to make sure that was okay with them as well. They okayed it, so I ended up writing for 2 major publishing houses. And a few months later, I got a call from a 3rd publishing house that offered the exact same thing. So there was a time in my career that I was balancing writing for 3 different publishing houses, mainstream, which meant that I had to produce at least 3 books every year so that I could give one to each publishing house. But it was a calling God had on my life, and he showed me favor throughout it all. And here it is now, some years later, 22 books later, 8-time national best-selling author. And I'm just so very grateful and humble that God chose me for that, and then allowed me to turn around and be able to help others to do the same thing. And so I'm teaching writers' workshops, have for years, and I have seen people that have come through my workshops that have gone on to be national best-selling writers. And so it's just a blessing doubled over to be able to function and walk in your calling and be able to do those things that, that God really equipped you to do.
Nice. Wow. So many things, so many jewels, and so many pearls that you talked about, Kendra, and so some of the things I heard were perseverance, dealing with rejection, that, you had a family, that you have a family,
Yes.
transition, all of these, being in a field that's difficult, but when God puts us in that field, we have to be sure that we are answering that call and doing what it takes. And so with everything that you're involved in, and the obstacles that you've had to overcome, the challenges that you've had to overcome to get on BET, like BET, I love BET, especially BET Plus. Like, you're doing your thing, Tyler Perry's doing his thing. It's really just a blessing to be, really interviewing you and having this conversation. So with all that you're involved in, how are you practicing self-care? How did you practice self-care? How did you stay sane? How did you practice self-love? How did you practice self-confidence when you got, rejected so many times, and then before someone finally picked up your book and made it your books and made them national best-selling author, you the best-selling author?
Yeah. It's a journey. It is a journey. It's very difficult when you have so many things going on. It's like a balancing act. that you have to be able to do. And so it takes you being willing to prioritize. I literally there was a time that I was so busy, and I still am, to the point where, I would literally have to write down a priority list to make sure that I was not neglecting family in order to fulfill what I was doing as a writer, making sure I was not neglecting my writing to do things that I was doing in corporate America. And so there were so many aspects that were now, going on. And so I had to kind of be able to compartmentalize everything that was going on. And so I had God with me throughout the process, and I would really be very prayerful about how I was doing things, because we have to, as not just as women, but speaking from the aspect of a woman of God who has children, who has a husband, you can't neglect those things for the purpose of being a professional.